Arber Xhekaj makes history in the Habs skills competition as he records what would be the third hardest shot in NHL history. We gotta dive into that. Plus, a big Habs schedule update and how it has some massive implications for who they might be able to pick at this upcoming draft. You won't want to miss anything we have to say on this episode of Habs Digest. But before we get into the video, I do this sometimes, guys, but hey, if you want to stay up to date on all the latest Habs news, rumors, reports, trades, everything, this is your spot, and over half of you watching have not hit that subscribe button. So if you want to stick around for all that stuff, help us push to 12, 15,000 subs. We'd really appreciate it. Time to get right into the video as Arber Xhekaj. Oh my goodness, Jesse. Now, as we all know, the Habs had their skills competition today with some interesting results. We'll get into some others a bit later, but the big story today was Arber Xhekaj. He was fighting himself, basically. His first shot was 105.4, and his second shot was 107.2 miles per hour. And if we just look at the history of the hardest shot competition in the NHL, well, the two hardest shots ever were 108.8 by Chara and 108.1 by Weber. Xhekaj would slot in at third place there. Some insane stuff, Jesse. No one else on the Habs even touched 100.
He was just blowing away the competition. It's amazing to see. Putting those big mids to use, for other than fighting. And we kind of knew it, right? And it's like, while this is amazing to see, these are huge numbers. It is surprising, but it's like, when we kind of think of Xhekaj, it's like, wait, this guy just surprises all the time. We're almost starting to expect this sort of thing. So this is wild. But I mean, if any guy is going to hit this crazy slap shot, on the Habs, it's going to be Xhekaj for sure. And has to make you think man, I would just love to see him start getting fed some more one-timers and just having him just kind of clap it, from the point, using that slapper a little bit more. And we started seeing him use it a little bit more, some success. He got a goal the other night doing that. A lot before he was kind of doing the quick wristers. In today's NHL, you get it, right? It's all about getting that quick sort of deceptive shot. But I mean, if he could mix it up with that hard wrister and then this slap shot, I mean, if you got a slap shot like this, you got to use it. And it seems like probably a good indicator that, he could be, a force on our second power play unit in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Now, I saw some people talking about Shea Weber, of course, showing up on that list. His intimidation factor on his slap shot, people don't want to dive in front of that. Some people do, but they might get hurt. And if Xhekaj can consistently get his slap shot over 100 miles an hour onto the net, I mean, it's very possible that he can. So it's a very interesting thing. I see some people comparing him to Sure, stuff like that, but I 100% agree. That intimidation factor, number one, and two, the fact that a shot that hard coming from the point, if you're screened, there's no chance you're going to be able to save that as a goalie. Some amazing stuff. Before we move on to the next stuff, Jesse, just wanted to mention the other winners. Caufield beating out Josh Anderson in the accuracy shooting competition. Kind of funny that Anderson was right behind Caufield, but it is what it is. Josh needs to get a goal. I'm so pumped for him to finally get that goal whenever it comes. And also fastest skater now. I want to get your thoughts on this. I really wished, I saw some people on Twitter say this, and I had the exact same thought. I really wish Brandon Gignac could have been there, could have been with the team to compete in this, because Alex Newhook won to the surprise of basically no one. Joshua Waugh put up a really good performance as well, but I kind of wish I got to see Gignac, Jesse. Who do you think would have came out on top between Gignac and Alex Newhook?
Ooh, I don't know. It would have been close. Gignac just might have got it, right? In that short tenure, he was showing he had some wheels to kind of get around, but nice to see Newhook get it. And I mean, Joshua Waugh with some surprising, set of speed there with his skates. That's amazing to see.
Yeah, really, really cool stuff from the Habs skill competition. Go check it out on their Twitter, on their website. There's a lot of awesome stuff from it. But yeah, Xhekaj, 107.2, insane. But it's time to transition. We got to talk a bit about the Habs schedule coming up. Now, Marc Dumont, shout out to him a couple days ago, wrote about this on Montreal Hockey Now, but I wanted to do a little bit more of a deep dive on kind of the implications of all this. So buckle up. Let's take a look. So right now, the 2024 NHL Draft Lottery odds, as you can see, or maybe if you're listening on Spotify, if you didn't know, we have this also going up on Spotify. So check out Habs Digest on Spotify if you prefer to use that over YouTube. Just a quick plug. So Montreal is 6th. Their highest odds for any draft pick is 7th overall pick with about 41%, 6th overall pick, 34% with, outside shots, 7.5% odds, and number 1 and number 2. But the thing that comes into play here is look at the teams below them, right? Arizona, Columbus, Anaheim, San Jose, Chicago. Well, let's look at the remaining schedule strength. All of those teams below Montreal, bar Columbus, have much easier schedules than Montreal going down the stretch. Montreal has the second hardest schedule left, only to Buffalo, and even then, it's very close. Actually, as of 2 days ago, Montreal's was the hardest until they lost to New Jersey, and now it's a little easier because they didn't have to play New Jersey. But So Montreal has a very tough schedule. Buffalo's just above them in the standings, who also has a hard schedule. But those teams below them, Jesse, Montreal is like not that far from falling way down the standings. See, they have 2 games in hand on Arizona and Columbus. It's not crazy to think Montreal could finish fourth last. We kind of talked about this. I know the players are sick of losing. I know the guys really want to win. Marty saying like it's a challenge mentally to come and do this every single day. But the odds are there. And I think one of these high picks can do the Habs some good. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's worth the suffering to fall down the standings with this tough schedule? Do you think that maybe some tough weeks are ahead of us here?
It might be worth it if we can do it organically, right? And you're kind of doing the best what you can in terms of a roster and everything else like that. If you're there kind of competing every night, which is kind of the silver lining in all this all year long, is that the Habs have been competing. So you have to think the team is there, the culture's there. If you just get the tools, you get those reinforcements, you get those Sean Monahan types, maybe a little bit younger this time around, we're really in the money, for sure. But you have to feel like if you're Kent Hughes, the way that you're thinking about this is the higher that we draft, the quicker that we're going to get an impact player for this team. In other words, the quicker our rebuild is really going to be, right? We're going to get there. It's just really getting the right players to really determine that amount of time there, which is going to be really interesting to see going forward, right? And there's a couple contributing things to this as well, besides the strength of schedule is you have to feel like with the trade deadline that, more bodies are going to be shipped out, probably some key guys. There were some interesting stats, from early on in the season, which did prove to be true of our goaltending being very good. And then, that goal save above expected. And that definitely, as most time in sports, kind of regressed to the mean there. For sure. But in other positive notes is that, since the month of February, we're actually eighth in the league in goals expected right now. At 53.3% there. So, I mean, it's nice to see that that's kind of balancing out a little bit. I think the first line definitely has a lot to share in that. It might be worth it, though, if we're looking at some of these lists of players, like, again, to do it right, if we want to really do it right and then say, okay, we don't really want to go back here. I don't think the Habs need to get another top 10 after this year. So I think really maximizing it this year with the really goal and even of adding players through free agency and otherwise to really avoid getting their future, I think it'd probably be the best move here.
Yeah, I'm on board. And you cited some really interesting stats, right? The fact that the Habs are 8th in expected goals for percentage in February, while their goaltending has regressed. So while their goaltending has regressed, they've been playing statistically some of their best offensive hockey, well, just overall hockey of the season, but they're in the midst of a 5-game losing streak. And I think that really paints a great picture of what's about to happen. The Habs have a tough schedule. They're playing good hockey, and it seems like they're going to continue to play good hockey and lose games unless you see a bit of a bounce back from the goalies, whether it's Monty, Jake Allen, or Cayden Primeau, whoever it is. So it's really interesting, and I know the players don't like losing, as Marty St. Louis said. It's like it's hard on you to come in every single day, know you're playing a good game, know you're doing all the things right, and still to lose. But you gotta hope, like you said, Jesse, one of these top 10 picks this year can change everything for them. Maybe Kent makes a big splash at the deadline. Maybe it's at the draft. And this team should be competing for the outside of a playoff spot next year. But, you gotta just take what you're given. And I think at this point, it's pretty much a given the Habs are going to lose some games down the stretch, and I'm not upset about it, as we're going to transition to who they could maybe look at targeting now. As we all know, Macklin Celebrini is that tier 1 prospect. He is the guy who a lot of teams are going for, and the odds of Montreal getting first, well, they're not zero. Look at the NHLE is basically just expected points projected to the NHL, so, for defensemen like you see Anton Silyev there, it's kind of not that, it doesn't really mean much. By the way, Silyev is a teammate of Bogdan, if you didn't know. But Jesse, as we know, Marty Lapointe said that the Habs consider there to be about 5 elite forwards in this draft. And you got to think it's probably Celebrini, Demidov, I would say Yzerman, Lindstrom, and Hellenius. Though I'm seeing some mock drafts with Yzerman going much further down, with Berkeley Catton shooting up a little bit as well. But when you look at this, and you look at the good defensemen, like Lev Shunov, I believe is how it's pronounced, like Silyev, who's 6'7", who could go well above his position, some of these forwards might slip, even if Montreal gets the 6th or 7th pick. I feel like no matter what, this is kind of the good part about this, no matter what, Montreal might be able to get one of those coveted forwards just because of the sheer depth of talent.
I really think so. And looking at some scouts lists, like, you almost feel like we might have a crack at Yzerman. Before he was kind of ranked as like the second guy, right? In this draft, it's kind of drop down a little bit, but I mean, complete sniper, some pretty decent size. And I mean, we see this year what snipers can do in the NHL, right? Their value is at an all-time high, right? So I feel like if some teams are sleeping on them, probably wrongfully so, we might be able to get a crack at him, right? Of course, no prospects game's going to be completely airtight. There are some things for him to iron out, kind of defensively. But I mean, isn't that to be expected for an offensive type of guy? But it's super exciting when we're looking at this. And, even looking at like also the Lindstrom, don't get confused about the last name. He is Canadian. And then also you mentioned, also with Canton, it's like these are players with amazing work ethic and then also play that complete game. So if last year really tells us anything, unless they were just completely dead set on a defenseman, that it's like they're going to go for an offensive guy. You need to have that two-way type of game. It's amazing to see what's happening right now with Canton, like peaking at the right time, just scoring goals left, right, and center. So yeah, I really think that we're going to get a crack at really an amazing player here.
Hope so, but now I'm sort of giving myself a bit of PTSD talking about how, oh, look, there's 5 forwards. The Habs are going to get one of these 5 guys. Yeah, it's quite similar to last year, but I think Marty the Point made it fairly obvious that they're looking for some talent up front. And I think you made a good point about two-way play, because Yzerman, that's certainly not his specialty, at least not yet. He is quite one-dimensional, which is what is lowering him on a lot of scouts' lists. But there's a lot of great options here. Lindstrom, of course, being 6'4". Who knows who the Habs are going to go for? Because again, like the personality clearly plays a big role in who Montreal selects as well. But it looks like you said, no matter what, there's going to be someone good available. Whether Montreal picks number 1 or whether they pick number 6 or 7, seems like all things are turning up Habs. But that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. Which one of these prospects would you choose if the Habs picked, say, 6th overall or 7th overall like they are right now? We'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't hit subscribe, do it now. We'd really, really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.